Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial for installing Pycharm Professional on macOS. And this is a tutorial that I'm creating for students in my classes who are taking a Python related class. Uh, some YouTubers who are not part of my class may have found their way here, but most of the value here is going to be for people who are my students. Now, it's part of a class that I'm doing for the summer at the University of Illinois iSchool. Um, it's oh, it's called Foundations of Information Processing in the summer of 2020. Um, it's basically an intro to programming course with Python 3. And so in week one, where uh, we will be soon, uh, we've got three things to do with the computer. Choose your computer, install Anaconda, install Pycharm Professional. If you haven't played the tutorial for install Anaconda, please stop here and go play that and follow it because that has to be done before this. Okay, so one a kind of a heads up here is that I'm recording this in the summer or for the summer of 2020, and I expect the life of this tutorial to be about a year-ish. Um, and what happens over the course of the year-ish is that the versions of the software, which are completely up to date today, uh, will not be the versions that will come up on the installation dialogues, say a year from today. And the advice that I give my students is um, unless in the instructions I've warned you off installing a particular new version, just install the newest version of everything. Okay? So keep that in mind. So Pycharm Professional, which in a minute we're just going to start calling Pycharm, it's the paid version of the Python IDE, Integrated Development Environment, from a company called JetBrains. It's a very popular product. We're entitled to a free copy as long as we're part of the university, and it's the version I use in all of my Python related classes. So, how do we get a license in order to be able to use that in our class? Well, I have a link here from my current class, and I typically do. Here's a link to a page on the JetBrains website on how to get free educational licenses if you're part of the university world. And there are licenses for students and for teachers, and there's a button apply now. So we're going to click on that. And you say whether you're a student or a teacher, and they kind of you fill all this stuff out, and then you apply. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. Um, and once you've done that, then you're ready to join me for the install. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, let's close Safari and start again. Okay, we're just going to open it up again, which is kind of silly. And we're going to go to jetbrains.com. Again, JetBrains is the company that brings us Pycharm. And we're going to go over to the icon of the little person and click on that. And turns out I'm already logged in. Okay. Well, let's log me out. Okay. So if you already have an account at JetBrains, uh, you need an account at JetBrains in order to download the software. So I already have one. But if you haven't set one up as a part of the licensing process, then you're going to need to set it up now. Okay. You're eventually going to get to the point where you're going to put in your university email address. Here's mine at the University of Illinois. And the password. And I think mine's just sitting in my password manager here. Yeah, it is. So let me copy it down. And I'm going to sign in. Oh, it didn't like that one. Well, we're going to pause while I get the right one. Well, it turns out I got my email ID wrong. Okay, so you get in your credentials, you click sign in. Sorry. And you sign in. Third time's the charm. There it goes. Okay, so here's my license. Uh, Mine's good through January 28th, 2021. So they're usually good for a year at a time. So I must have done this earlier this year. Here's a list of everything that you're able to install. Okay, and I think we could just click on Pycharm here and get into the dialog. I prefer to go to the download link here and just pick Pycharm. That'll be Pycharm Professional. That's the paid version. We're going to get version, today we're going to get version 2020.1. And I'm going to click on the download link. And it brings me to another download page. Click on the download button. And it's going to start to download to my download directory. And there it is there. And it looks like it's just about all the way down. Let's see. It's going to start to jump around when it's done. A watch pot never boils. All right, there it is. It jumped. So now I'm going to minimize the browser, and I'm going to bring up Finder and go to Downloads. And one of the things I have here Anaconda cheat sheet from when I did the Anaconda install. Let's get rid of that. So I've got the DMG file for Pycharm Professional, and I'm just going to give that a double click. And that's going to start up an installer dialog, which popped up on another monitor. And here we go. And this is one of these things where you drag the Pycharm icon and drop it on top of applications, which I did. And up on another monitor, it's giving me, it already exists. Well, that's because I've installed it before. So I'm going to click on replace. And here it comes. Okay. And let's see. It should be installed. How can we find it? Well, if I wasn't already in the applications folder, I would go to it. I'm still in downloads. I click on applications and I'm looking for Pycharm. They're alphabetical. Pycharm, and I'm going to double click that to start it up, and it's going to fire up. Okay, and now sure I want to open it? Yes, open it. Okay. Now, sometimes Pycharm can be a slow starter. I see the splash panel. It's coming up on my other monitor again. It's a pretty green rectangle with the Pycharm logo. And then it brings up dialog. Okay. And for you, this left panel, which has a list of projects you've opened up before, yours is probably going to be empty. Mine isn't because I've been here before. Okay. Now, before we forget about this, you're not going to want to hunt for Pycharm in the applications folder all the time. So go down uh, to where your Pycharm project is in the dock. Mine's probably already been added to the dock permanently, but you can right click and go to options and say keep in dock. Okay, so then we're not going to have to look for it all the time. It's just going to be down in the dock. And let's prove that to ourselves. So we've closed it and click the Pycharm icon again. And it put the beautiful splash screen up on my other monitor. And it brought up the real dialog box here. So we're going to create a new Python project. So right here at the top, create new project. Okay. And what you'll see here is a location box. Okay. And what happens is that it's kind of sticky. Okay. It's going to be pointing to wherever it wants, wherever you were last. So as I recall, the first time I installed this, it was in my home directory, and then underneath that there's a thing called Pycharm projects, and then immediately under that it had untitled. So one of the things that you can do is you can use this folder icon and navigate to where you want to keep your files. I tend to like to keep mine in documents. Okay, so I'm keeping mine in documents. Then I've got a directory called My Python Course Projects. You pick wherever you want yours to be. A thing to remember here is this word untitled. This is the name of the project. In a lot of products, you have one box for the path and the other for the file name. Not here. Okay, so this untitled is the file name. You don't want a project called untitled. I'm going to call this, I suggest that you call this My First Python Project. My First Python Project. Now, I've already got one by that name, so I'm going to put _3. Okay? And you'll notice I put this in all lowercase, words separated by underscored, and this is, as we'll learn in the Python course, this is the convention for Python names. Okay, so that's a great way to do that. All right. We want to use an existing interpreter. We don't have one. Oops. Why is that? Well, because we're going to need to match up our project with a virtual environment that we created with Anaconda. Okay, so if we don't have one, let's take the drop down. No, there's nothing there. Click on the dot 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 box and we go to the dialog where you pick a virtual environment. Okay, we're not going to use a virtual env environment. We're going to use a conda environment. So pick in the left panel, pick conda environment. Okay, and then before you forget, go down and click make available to all projects. Click on that checkbox. Okay, interpreter. Look in the drop down. Is there one there? No. Okay, so we're going to have to go look for it. It's a good thing when we installed Anaconda, we remembered where our virtual environments got put. Okay, so I'm going to click on the dot 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 box. And at least in my installation, under users and my ID, which creates my home directory, I go down here and I want to find the opt subdirectory, OPT, and here it is, and open this up. And there's yet a further subdirectory for Anaconda 3. And the virtual environments are in a subdirectory called envs for environments. So open that up. And we're not done yet. We don't want to pick the virtual environment. So the virtual environment that we want is E4 Trainer Python course. But remember, the dialog that we're in is we're selecting a Python interpreter. So we want to go inside that virtual environment and point to the Python interpreter that we want. And that's in the bin subdirectory. And there's a lot of different things that you could pick in here, but the most reliable one to pick is this entry called just Python. Okay, you don't want Python 3 or Python 3.7. Those would work, but that's not the general way to do it. This entry is actually a file shortcut that probably points to Python 3.7, but pick the entry called just Python and click on OK. And then click on OK again. Okay, and now you can see that we're using Python 3.7, which is what we picked for a virtual environment back when we were working with Anaconda. We've picked the virtual environment called E4 Trainer Python course, and we're going to click the create button. When you come in here subsequently, this should already be populated. If that's true, great. If it turns out that you've got more than one virtual environment, you ought to be able to click the drop down and find it. Here's a whole bunch of old ones that I've uninstalled. Okay. Or again, if you get here and you're not pointing to any virtual environment, well, then you have to click the dot, dot, dot and go looking again. Okay. But we don't need to do that. So we've got the proper virtual environment and we pick the interpreter within it, and we're going to click on create. And my project came up. You won't be too surprised. On my other monitor, that's where I was working all afternoon in one of my Python projects. And here we are. Okay. So we have here at the top a directory that is the top of our project. And here it's got the proper name, my first Python project 3, because I had already used up a couple of others. And then we have some other files. We have access to external libraries, all this kinds of stuff. We just want the project, and we want to right click on the project, highlight and right click, pick new, and now we're gonna pick the kind of file that we want. right after the first divider is Python file. That's what we want. And now we're going to put the name in. And the name of the program that we're going to create, our first one, is going to be called Goodbye Cruel World. So we're going to use the same capitalization and spacing scheme. So goodbye, so it's going to be all lowercase, goodbye underscore cruel underscore world. Okay. And we're going to press enter. We're not going to put .py. The Python files end with the extension .py, but that's done automatically for us. So return. And I've got version control turned on here, so it asks me if I want to put it under version control. We're not using that in the course. That just happens to be configured on my machine. Okay, why Goodbye Cruel World? Well, there's a tradition in programming teaching that goes all the way back to the C programming language, where the authors of the first textbook for C, the first example they had the readers do was a simple program called Hello World. Well, there's a tradition for your first program in a new language to be Hello World. Well, that's gotten old. So I decided that it was going to be sort of a cynical version of that. That's why we do Goodbye Cruel World. Okay, so one thing that we're going to do in our class is we're going to put the name of the file right up on the top in a comment. So we're just going to say goodbye underscore cruel world, and here we want the .py because it's the file name, and I'm just going to hit a carriage return. You can see that that's not really turned into a proper comment yet. We'll see soon. So we want two comment lines at the top. This is going to be our standard approach in the course. So the first one is just the name of the file, and then the second one is a short sentence that describes the intention of the program. So I'm going to say a demonstration program that prints a one-line message on excuse me, on the console. There you go. Right there. Okay, still not a comment. Well, the comments have in front of them, they have a pound sign, this uppercase 3, and space. So you see when I put that in front of Goodbye Cruel World, it turned into a comment. Is there an easier way to do that? Yeah. So I'm going to undo, which of course on my Mac is Command Z. Sorry, Command Z. There it is. So if you have got one or more lines that you want to turn into a comment, you can highlight as much as you want and type in Command / and that turns them all, it toggles them into a comment. If you want to toggle them out, they're out of a comment. I'm going to Command / again into a comment. Okay, I've got that. Now I'm going to want 2 blank lines because that just happens to be a style rule that we're going to learn about soon. And we're going to create a function called main. This is the standard arrangement of code that we're going to use in our Python programs. It's a well-accepted good practice. So we're going to create a function. We say def to define the function, def space, and it's called main That's the standard name. And we're going to put left paren. And as soon as you type the left paren, it's going to give you a right paren. And then we're going to end the line with a colon. So this defines a function, which is a code block. Okay. And inside, we're going to type a single line of code, print, and then no space, left paren. You automatically get the right paren. We're going to want to have a character string which goes inside some kind of quotations. The typical way to do it these days for Python programmers is just to use the apostrophe. So we're going to type an apostrophe. It's going to put the second one in for us, and it's going to leave the cursor right where we can type. We're going to type our message, goodbye, comma, cruel world, exclamation. So that's the simplest instruction that you really can do, is to print a message, and it comes out in this place called the console. The console is where you'd be working if you were working at the command line in terminal. Okay, and then we're going to have one blank line, two blank lines, and then on the third line down there, we're going to go all the way to the left, and we're just going to write MAIN, parens. And we need to do one more thing. We need to go out to the end and hit just a return. So the last line is an empty line. Okay? So why did we put the blank lines and the return and all that kind of stuff? Well, that's the accepted Python style. It's presented in a standard called PEP 8. We're going to learn all about it in the class. So what we've done is we've created a single function that holds our code, and we've called that function, and it's going to run that. So we just want to prove we're not learning Python yet. We just want to prove the installation worked. We're going to learn how to do this in a little more deliberate way during our chapter 1 work. So how can we get this to run? Well, this is called the editor window. So right click anywhere in the editor window, and then about halfway down we pick run goodbye cruel world, and it opens up a console down here, and it runs our program, and now we see the output. Now if we were working in a terminal, kind of like this terminal, if we were running Python at the terminal, we would type in some code to run the program, and then we would get the answer back right here. So that's what's being simulated for us. That's this terminal is also called the console. Okay, so this area down here simulates what goes on at the console. And as you can see, we've got the output, goodbye cruel world. And that's all we need to get started. Okay, so we created our first Python project in Pycharm. We created our first program in that project. We were able to get it to run, and that's that. So how do we get out of Pycharm? Well, in the Mac version, here's how it works. If we go up and we click on the little red X on the top left, we will pop out of the Pycharm IDE, and we'll come back to the dialog where we're able to pick the next thing that we want to do. Okay, so Let's say, just say we want to close it. Red X again. And that was the installer. Okay. What about the next time we come here? Well, the next time we come here, we go down to the dock. We find the Pycharm icon. We fire it up. And it comes back. And whereas in the Windows version, when you start it up, it goes back to the last project you had open. And the Mac version, it brings you to this dialog. And if you want to go back to the last thing you had open, it's at the top of the list. So you click on that and it fires it up. Okay. And then again, if you wanted to run this, the first time you run it, you need to click within the editor panel for the program that you want to run. So we did a right click, goodbye Cruel World. Once you have the Python console going, there's a play button down here. Every time you click it, you will play it. Okay, and something you may want to fool with. You can change your code up here. Goodbye Cruel World. Sorry to see. Sorry to leave you. I'm just going to add that there. Okay, and you click off of the line. Okay, and now when you click off the line, it saves the file automatically. And now you can just replay down here on the bottom left, replay. And of course, we can come up here. Let's say we want to undo the change that we made on the Mac. That's a Command Z. So we're going to Command Z our way back. Okay, so that undid that. Again, we just have to click off that line and we can replay it. It's back to goodbye, a Cruel World. Okay, so that's all we're going to learn about it today. I'll see you in the first class, and I'll say bye for now. Bye-bye.